a programming note. Mullen and I will be calling the first Thursday night game of the season next week in Memphis, Navy in Memphis. Looking forward to that. We'll be in studio all week and recapping, Coach, what looks to be a really solid slate this week, and after kind of a up and down slate in week one.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was there weren't a lot of the big marquee games in week one, but there ended up being some really exciting games and some pretty shocking games, in week one. So it was an exciting week. It was a great week to get everything kicked off. And, as we look at the schedule this week, I'm excited. I mean, every window that we have on Saturday, there's going to be some great games.
Yeah, I'm going to title this week kind of a get to know you week with a lot of these teams. And I'll get into that theme in a minute, because I think when you really look at the grid, based on what happened in some of these schools in week one, relative to who they play in week two, I think is a very educational week for some of these teams we're going to talk about. But before we move on to week two, since we haven't really talked since Monday night with Clemson and Duke, I do want to hit on that quickly, and your overall thoughts on what Duke was able to do to Clemson at home.
I thought it was pretty impressive. And, the part of it is listen, Clemson made a lot of mistakes. They didn't look like the Clemson maybe we're used to seeing. But however, it wasn't that Duke played a perfect game and Clemson made all these mistakes watching that football game. Duke made a bunch of mistakes as well. And I'm watching the game as we were watching back and forth. The thing that stood out to me the most was you kept waiting for Clemson's athletes to just take over and look dominant. And Duke played toe-to-toe with him. I mean, the entire game. I mean, you were looking, it wasn't like Clemson was at any point in the game was ever going to out-athlete Duke. And that says a lot about where the Duke program is. It potentially says that, Clemson maybe doesn't have the game breakers they've had in the past and the skill players they've had in the past, but Duke was going toe-to-toe with them. And, Duke turned the ball over, made some mistakes. So, for them to and then to put the game away in the fourth quarter with physicality and kind of a dominant factor, I thought was, it says a lot where Duke is. And honestly, it might say a lot where Clemson is as well.
Okay. Stay there with Clemson, because Dabo said yesterday in his recap of the game at his press conference, he said, look, I looked at the film. If we don't make some of those mistakes offensively moving forward, we won't lose another game. I'm going to say that again. If we don't make some of the mistakes we made offensively, we won't lose another game. Do you agree with that assessment based on what you saw to Clemson?
No, not at all. I mean, and you look at their schedule coming. I mean, they have 3 teams currently ranked in the top 17 in the country coming up on their schedule. You look at, the benefit, maybe they're going to have to count on their fan base and the home field advantage when they're playing Florida State. You look how Florida State looked last weekend. They're going to be a much better football team than Clemson, much more talented football team than Clemson going into that game. Now, granted, the game is at home. They get Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame's not going to look that bad when they step out there on the field. And North Carolina certainly didn't look that bad stepping out there on the field. And when you look at those 3 games, never mind State, I don't see that happening. Now, for Clemson to have any shot at the playoff, they're going to have
done. That's done. Playoff is done.
If they win out, they would have
State twice. They can beat Florida State twice.
2 wins over Florida State, a win over Notre Dame, a win over North Carolina, a win over South Carolina. I don't think it's over for them with the schedule that they have this year. However, watching them play Monday, I just don't see it. I don't see them winning. I don't know. They're going to be lucky to get to the ACC title game watching them play on Monday night.
Well, that's what it is. I think it's over just based on the team they fielded. Look, this is a transfer portal world, and Clemson's the only one not living in it. Look at how Florida State won on Monday night. Keon Coleman, transfer. Kid from South Carolina, the pocket knife. I don't know why his name always slips me.
Jared Verse, Jaheim Bell on offense.
That's what I'm saying.
Jared versus last year on defense.
That's what I'm like. Dabo has been so slow to adapt to the NIL portal era. He still wants to get him in high school and develop them, which is all well and good, and you should still be doing that. But at some point, it's going to be too late because he refuses to get developed guys to come in and help him immediately. Did you see one player offensively that could stretch the field for Clemson?
That was the issue. That was where you didn't see it. Now, granted that I'm going to give him credit because what you'd see is they don't take transfers in. They don't lose a lot of guys at Clemson. So,
you're right.
His formula could still potentially work for him and saying, hey, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing. Same guys they've had. Klubnik, I thought solid, looked pretty solid last year a little bit. Watching that game, I don't see him. I was expecting a step forward from, you're talking about a guy that came in as a true freshman late in the year, looked sharp. Now he has, hey, I got a year under my belt in college. I'm the guy moving forward. But I thought he possibly regressed at the quarterback position. And you're used to seeing Clemson give the ball to a running back that gets in the open field and is gone, or stretching the field vertically with receiver. And I don't want to play the running backs. I think their running backs are solid, but they're not game breakers. But they don't have anybody on the outside that there were times we were talking about during the game. They have a guy catch a 6-yard hitch with the corner way off. Turn around. It's one-on-one. It's an 8-yard gain. He gets tackled. I'm used to seeing the Clemson. Yeah. I'm used to seeing that turn into a 70-yard touchdown.
Yeah, Clemson 6 years ago, that's gone.
It's like every time you're holding your breath every time one of their guys gets the ball in their hand. The other night, you're kind of, to be honest with you, the Duke athletes look the same. And so I think that's really good for Duke, and I don't think that's as good for Clemson.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.